entertaining talking sports.
Whoa, what is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. I don't even know what to say right now. It feels like it's been like 30 years since the New York Giants beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I know it hasn't been that long. They've won 20 out of the last 24 contests, and since I've been on YouTube, they've completely destroyed us. They've won the last 8 matchups coming into this game, and the New York Giants took on the Philadelphia Eagles just 2 or 3 weeks after they had played them previously, in which the New York Giants had an 11-point lead, and in typical New York Giants fashion, when they go up against Philadelphia, they squandered away the lead and gave the game to the Philadelphia Eagles, and a lot of Giants fans coming into this game thought the same thing would happen for obvious reasons, and I can't blame them at all. I did pick the New York Giants, much like I did the first week, because quite frankly, I think we're just as good as this football team, and after this week, Eagles fans can't really say much. The Eagles were pretty much fully equipped in terms of health, and we didn't have Saquon Barkley, and the New York Giants went out there, and they got the victory 27-17, and we're going to jump into all the details in this video. But the first thing I want to say is congratulations to every single New York Giants fan. Whether you agree with me or you don't, whether you're a guy that wants to get rid of Daniel Jones, whether you're a guy that wants to get rid of Dave Gettleman, regardless of what your opinion is, congratulations on this win, because at the end of the day, this is all everybody wants. If you're a New York Giant fan, you want to win football games, and the New York Giants are starting to get back to that. Now, a lot of what the detractors said, and rightfully so, coming into the game, the New York Giants haven't really beat anybody outside of Washington. 4 out of the 5 wins by Daniel Jones throughout his career have been against Washington, and the other one was against Tampa Bay, in which they missed 3 field goals, and the New York Giants kind of got a lucky win. Well, this is the first, in my opinion, signature win of Daniel Jones' career. I mean, you could definitely say the debut start, but this one really hits home, and it's certainly the biggest moment of Joe Judge's career. And I think if Joe Judge goes on to succeed, and the same thing can be said for Daniel Jones, if he goes on to succeed and we win Super Bowls and we compete to make the playoffs every year for a 5 or 6 year stretch, we're going to look back at this game as one of the stepping stones into the progression of the New York Giants. Now, coming into this year, I said countless times, I love the offseason that the New York Giants had. I thought they'd get off to a slow start, and I thought they'd really turn on the Jets over the second half of the season, not necessarily resulting in wins, but seeing a much better football team. And there's no denying it. In every facet of the game at this point in time, the New York Giants are a much improved football team, and that includes your quarterback, Daniel Jones. Going into last week, Daniel Jones had only 1 start in his entire career over his first 20 starts or so, whatever it was, in which he had 0 turnovers. He now has gone 2 straight games with 0 turnovers. So in that area alone, there's been a dramatic improvement. Now, if people just look at the box score, they're going to say, 21 to 28, about 240 yards. He did have a lot, I think he had about 50, 60 yards on the ground. Daniel Jones made plays in this game, and Daniel Jones played very well. Matter of fact, I could argue it may have been the best game of his career. When you factor in the opponent, when you factor in the situation, this was the biggest game the New York Giants have played, arguably, at least at this point in the season, since the playoff game against the Green Bay Packers, in which, well, I don't need to revisit that with Odell Beckham on the boat trip. But Daniel Jones and the New York Giants found a way to get it done in this football game. And soak it in, New York Giants fans, because you deserve it. And this was a complete team victory, top to bottom. Nobody was perfect. The defense definitely struggled at points in that game, specifically against the run. It was something that the New York Giants were really good at. They had only surrendered 100 yards in 1 out of the previous 7 contests. In this game, the Philadelphia Eagles, I think, ran for 156 yards, and Boston Scott and, everybody else, Sanders, was running all over us throughout really the first 3 quarters of this contest. A lot in the first half. The Giants got lucky on that second drive in which Carson Wentz kind of stumbled over his own feet, and that backed them up, and the Giants were able to get the ball because of it. But we were really struggling in terms of defense against the run over the first 2.5 quarters or so. Of course, Boston Scott broke that big run on the first drive of the second half, but the New York Giants defense held strong, and they got the job done, and they got stops when they needed to, much like last week. Now, there were no turnovers created in this game by either side, so the New York Giants continue to be smart with the football. They didn't come up with any turnovers, but they did what they needed to do. In terms of special teams, Riley Dixon might have been the MVP of this game. Riley Dixon was ridiculous. He flipped the field position 3 times. He had a punt that was like 80 yards. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but it was an insane punt that flipped the field position. He pinned them deep 2 other times inside, I think, the 10 or 11 yard line. He was phenomenal in this game. Gano continues to get the job done, and I was glad to hear that Gano got a contract extension by the Giants because, well, he deserves it. Give that guy whatever he wants. The kicker position is one of the most underrated positions in all of football. It costs you games. They don't get credit when they win you games. But Graham Gano has kept us in games with his field goal kicking, and again, was perfect on the day with 2 more field goals on the year. And if there was a Pro Bowl this year, he'd be going there. He's been absolutely fantastic. So I wanted to make sure that I hit home with the special teams. Jarrell Peppers was actually good in that department as well. In terms of the defense, Darnay Holmes struggled a little bit. That was one individual that I noticed. But overall, I thought it was a good game plan. They showed different, they got pressure from different sides of the field. Patrick Graham always seems to be able to scheme some kind of pressure, whether it's up the A-gap, whether it's off the side. It's what he did in this football game. He sent a lot of pressure up the middle with the linebackers. He sent pressure off the edge. The Giants were able to come up with 3 sacks, and they got enough pressure on Carson Wentz to force some mistakes. Where they struggled was in the run game. And coming into this game, I said that the New York Giants are establishing an identity, and it's why I thought they'd win the game. Now, I didn't think they'd win by 10. I thought they'd win by about a field goal, but the identity that the New York Giants have started to establish has been a balanced attack on offense and a team that wants to run the ball as much as possible, to limit the turnovers, to win the time of possession, and to be good on third down. Now, on third down offense, they weren't great. They were 5 for 14. Now, where the defense excelled, they got off the field all 9 times that Philadelphia was in third down. Philadelphia was 0 for 9 on third down. They were 1 for 3 on fourth down. So overall, they were, 1 for 12. So New York Giants defense in that aspect is why, a big reason why we won this game, and it's why Philadelphia only put up 17 points, even though their running game was as potent as it was. The fact of the matter is they shut down their best playmakers. Fulgham didn't do much. The New York Giants did a great job on defense in the passing game. Carson Wentz for the game was 21 of 37 for only 208 yards. Daniel Jones was much more efficient in this game. He used the legs. He was a dual threat, and he continues to progress. And that is all I ask from my quarterback. And at this point in time, Daniel Jones is going to be your quarterback going into 2021. I'm like 95% sure of that. Matter of fact, I'm like 99% sure of that. And Dave Gettleman, unless he retires, is probably coming back. And when you look at this offseason, Dave Gettleman and Joe Judge, whoever you want to give the credit to, has done a damn good job. They built this defense from scratch. It is now at least a league average defense that is definitely trending upwards. The offensive line continues to get the job done. I talked about coming into this game that the New York Giants were becoming a run-first approach. They had not had 5 games in a row where they had over 100 yards on the ground since 2015. You got to go back 5 years. Well, today, they did it. 5 straight games with over 100 yards on the ground, and the second straight game in which they had over 100 yards on the ground in the first half. The New York Giants set the tempo on offense. They had 2 great drives to start the game. They had a lot of quick first read throws for Daniel Jones. I thought Jason Garrett called a hell of a ball game as he continues to impress me. He showed, they took some shots. Darius Slayton made the great catch with the adjustment. They had the nice call to Evan Ingram. It seems like they give you 1 or 2 of those calls every game where they hand it to him in the running game, where they fake the pitch and they hand it to Ingram. And Ingram actually made a hell of a catch. Wanted to point that out as well. I think it was a third down conversion. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I think it was, though, where he made that diving catch. I want to give him credit there. Slayton had almost 100 yards. He did have a big drop in the game, but in the end, it didn't matter, and he had one of his better games in the year in which he nearly had 100 yards. We didn't have any touchdowns in the air, but I don't really care. Wayne Gallman ran it in 2 times. It is now the 4th straight game in which Wayne Gallman has gotten into the end zone. Great stuff. I think we got to bring Wayne Gallman back as long as the deal makes sense. So I was excited to see that ground game continue to progress as we see this offensive line get better and better and better every single week. And that's the identity of this football team, and that was the most important thing that I wanted to see by the end of the season. A maturing, improving offensive line. And we're already seeing it. And I think it's only going to get better over the course of the rest of the season. Was the offensive line perfect? No. I mean, there were definitely times where they collapsed and they got pressure quickly. But overall, they did the job. And overall, Daniel Jones got the job done. He did what I asked of him. Don't make mistakes. He didn't force throws when they weren't there. He made plays with his legs. Now, I'm not going to get too excited about this one. Because, I am. We haven't beaten the Eagles in forever. But let's be fair. The Eagles aren't very good. But the New York Giants are finding ways to beat football teams. And now we're going to get it tested 2 weeks coming off the bye against the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to pick us to win because I think we're better than the Bengals. And then we'll really start to get our test as the season progresses. Of course, we're rooting for the Browns to beat the Eagles next week. And then the New York Giants are right in the thick of it if they're able to knock down the Bengals with 5 challenging games to go. And who would have thought that the New York Giants would be right in the middle of the race? And whether or not we make the playoffs or not, I can tell you one thing definitively. There is not a team in this division that I'd rather have the future of than the New York Giants. And the main reason for it, well, one, they have young players that are only getting better. And they have players that will only learn those schemes better in year 2. But 2, it's the head coach, Joe Judge, and he has completely brought life into this New York Giants franchise as the New York Giants continue to get W's. And that's all I want to see. I want to see us go out there against the Bengals, get our 4th win, and continue to springboard off of that. But I want to say congratulations to all the New York Giants fans, and I want to say thank you to everyone that showed support, that blew up the stream. I'll be live tomorrow. We'll talk more about it. We'll celebrate the win tomorrow night with a stream. Hope to see some of you guys there for that. But I can never say thank you enough. We had over 3,000 people in there for a win against the Philadelphia Eagles. And it was an absolute thrill to get to experience it with each and every one of you. And one promise that I made in that stream was at the end of my post-game video was I would have a celebratory beer. I would chug a beer for you guys, even though I chugged 2 on stream. But it's time to celebrate. It's time to enjoy the future of this football team. And it's time to enjoy this win against the Philadelphia Eagles, something we haven't had in a very long time. So whether or not you're a pessimistic Giant fan, an optimistic Giant fan, you're a Giant fan. And nobody, in my opinion, shouldn't be smiling ear to ear after the way the New York Giants played today. And we can only hope it gets better. But guys, cheers to you. Cheers to everybody out there. And let's go out there and beat Cincinnati next week. All right, you're not going to get a full beer. I drank way too much today. But guys, as always, if you like what you watch, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.